He said he'd loved me forever, but when we touched for the first time, I saw the moment he killed me. In another life, we met in the strangest of ways on a glitchy poetry forum neither of us meant to join, where usernames were vague and posts vanished after midnight, but I saw his words. His screen name was Ashes and Rain, and mine was Velvet Mist, and every syllable he wrote felt like a breath I'd forgotten how to take. He spoke of fire and war and tenderness like he'd lived 1,000 lives, and I teased him at first, calling him dramatic, but we kept writing, night after night, until his absence on a Thursday made me panic like a war widow. And when he came back the next day, apologizing because his Wi-Fi had died in a thunderstorm, I realized I was in love with a man I'd never met, whose face I'd only imagined, and when we finally moved to video calls, my hands shook and his smile was so oddly familiar it gave me chills, like deja vu with teeth. We spoke for months, across cities, across storms and moods, and moments where we nearly said, "I love you," but paused out of fear. It was all too surreal, until one day, we agreed to meet halfway between London and Cornwall in a little cafe that smelled of cinnamon and rain, and when I walked in, he stood up like he'd recognized me before I'd even taken off my coat. And when we touched his hand, brushing mine to pull back the chair, something hit me like a scream inside my chest. A flash of steel, a burning field, my throat cut, his face above mine, not with love, but rage. And I staggered back, knocking over my tea, gasping as the room spun, and he went pale as bone, saying, "Did you feel that too?" And then the dream started. Every night I saw the same battlefield, the same war-torn land, where I stood in armor, blade in hand, screaming at him in a language I didn't know but felt. And he struck me down, again and again, over lifetimes. Always the same ending until we started researching, obsessively through old records, ancient texts, even past life regression forums, desperate for answers. Finding in an old Welsh chronicle a tale of two warriors, a seer and a soldier who fell in love before discovering they were destined enemies from opposing bloodlines, cursed to repeat betrayal in every reincarnation unless they could choose peace while fully remembering the pain. And suddenly it all made sense. The instant trust, the dread, the impossible recognition in his eyes, the way he said, "I knew you'd smell like smoke," before we ever met, and it wasn't just us. We found paintings, old manuscripts, a church mural in Devon showing two figures who looked exactly like us, locked in combat under a burning sky, and as the visions grew stronger, so did the fear. What if we were nearing the choice point again, where one of us would kill the other to preserve the pattern, but this time we refused to let fate win. We booked a weekend far from everything, in an old cottage by the sea where the past couldn't follow. But that night, lightning cracked and I awoke with my hand around a knife and his chest rising, barely beside me, and I screamed myself awake, dropping the blade, sobbing, realizing I'd nearly done it again when he opened his eyes, terrified, and said, "It's still in us, isn't it?" We called a woman who specialized in ancestral memory trauma, and in her candlelit study filled with incense and strange relics, she told us the truth we dreaded, that our souls were forged in opposition, that love between us was unnatural and must chosen deliberately every single time. And to break the cycle, one of us would have to truly forgive the other, not just now, but across centuries. And so he dropped to his knees and wept, saying, "I killed you before because I hated what I couldn't understand." And I said, "And I hated you for not choosing me." And somehow the hate cracked like a shell breaking, and something new was born between us, not blind love, but love in spite of everything. And in that moment, our bodies burned not with fear, but with peace. And the visions faded, and for the first time, our touch didn't spark war, only warmth. And now when people ask how we met, we lie and say online, Because how do you tell someone we fell in love through poems? But first, we had to forgive centuries of blood.